November 28th, 2022. You're listening to Oblast with Don and Kevin, and I'm Kevin.
I'm done.
Folks, the way we start this show, there's not a lot of prep.
No,
Don connects to me, and we start. Like,
I've literally been on for 30 seconds.
yeah, just start the show. That's what we do. We don't discuss very much. Like, it's in a
Yeah,
text message, a couple topics.
that's it.
It's kind of it, man. We
Don't want to
start.
ruin it. Don't want to waste it all, but just
Right.
between the two of
If
us.
we just talk to each other, we'd be ruining some good content. It's just
Yeah.
not what we want to do. But welcome to the show. Welcome to
Hey.
the show. Thanksgiving's over. Did you have a nice Thanksgiving, Don?
Yeah, it was all right. Usual. It's- There's never anything really special. It's just, go to my cousin's, see a couple people, and drive around.
Food
Did
good?
a lot of driving.
Did you have good
Hmm?
food?
Yeah.
Food
Yeah, it
was
was good.
delicious.
Yeah, my cousin's a good cook. She's nothing special. It's not like she's like a amazing chef or nothing. She's willing to cook it all. So it's like, yeah, cool. I'll eat it.
Yeah. So I cooked for the family. So this was a thing I've been thinking about doing since my mom passed away because my brother lives with his girlfriend and his youngest daughter, who's 20, and they would go to his girlfriend's mom's. She passed away. So they stopped going there a couple years ago, whenever she passed away. And then my brother's ex-wife, who lives with his middle child and her two boys, and
Yeah,
the ex-wife has two boys as well. So there's
yeah,
four little boys between the ages of 3 and 5. They used to go to her parents, but they passed away. And then Samantha, which is the oldest child, would also sometimes go with them, but she lives out on her own with her fiance. So I was like, I don't see any of these people generally, right? I kind of have to make a trip out to Lorraine occasionally to see the boys, but for the most part, I don't see my brother very often. I definitely don't see his girlfriend. I don't see his youngest. Don't see Samantha, his oldest, etc. So I was like, what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna have Thanksgiving. But the thing is it's like, first of all, it's a lot of work, right? Making dinner for everybody, and
right.
then trying to also keep everything clean around here. Not always easy. So it was always kind of like a bit of a to do. But I decided to do it this time, and so I had about 15 people, right? But four of those were little kids, and then one 20-year-old who only eats like rolls. I don't know.
Yeah,
Starch living kind of thing.
yeah,
So I did this thing. I basically made all the staples. I made the mashed potatoes. I made the gravy. I made mac and cheese. I made stuffing. Most of this stuff is pretty simple type stuff.
yeah.
But the turkey, what I did this time is I've made turkeys many times, and I followed this recipe I found online, which basically I deboned the turkey while it was raw, right? And when I say debone, I don't mean I took out every bone or anything, right? I just mean that like I cut the breasts off, I cut the legs off, and the wings off, right? And then you take the carcass and you make stock out of it.
Right.
So that stock cooked overnight while I did what they call a dry brine, which basically just means you cover the turkey with salt generously, and you put it in the fridge, and that salt overnight gets kind of sucked up by the meat, helping to make it, you know, juicy and tender, etc. And then the next day, I decided. So I did the main recipe, which is I basically put some avocado oil in the pan, and then you kind of fry skin side down the turkey until it's like a golden brown, right? So it gives you like a crispy skin. It's a nice golden brown color, and then you put it in the oven with a meat thermometer, and you cook the turkey breast until it's about 155, and then you take those out and you take out the wings because those are usually pretty thin, and then you put the thighs and the legs back in until they're about 190, 195, and then you take those out so they're still tender. So I did that, but I also took one turkey breast and I did the sous vide with it, which I have a special oven that does that. But traditional sous vide, if you don't know what it is, it you take the meat, whatever it is, steak, whatever, in this case turkey breast, and you put it in like this. You put it kind of like in a plastic bag, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then you submerge it in hot water, and the water is at like the right temperature. So let's say you wanted to get the turkey breast to 155. I believe you would set the temperature to 155 of the water. And then
Yeah.
you would put it in there, and then it would slowly get to that temperature over time. And this makes, I mean, it takes a long time, right? It takes like about 4 hours or something. And
Right.
this makes the meat very, very tender. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to try to do one. Like, so I did the traditional roast, and then I did the sous vide, and I wanted to see, which the guests like better. And I can't even tell because they ate all the turkey. It's the first time in my life where all the turkey was eaten. There was no
Yeah.
turkey left. There was no turkey left, and it wasn't because I had a small turkey. It's just that everybody really liked the turkey, which was good.
Yeah.
I was happy with that. They didn't eat all the macaroni and cheese. So I made way too much mac because I figured the little kids would eat the macaroni and cheese, but they didn't. They ate something, but they didn't eat a lot of that.
No.
But otherwise, it was a good time. The kids were screaming, running around with no clothes on, other than their under or their diapers,
Yeah.
except for the oldest boy, the 5-year-old. He was upstairs with the older kids. And but Yeah, yeah. Because
Yeah.
my girlfriend's daughter was there, her youngest daughter, and then the 20-year-old hung out with them upstairs too. So that's like the older kids were upstairs, and then the little kids were downstairs. And I was kind of running between rooms, hanging out with my brother. He was talking to his two older daughters, and then in the other room I had the ex-wife, my brother's girlfriend, my girlfriend. They're kind of sort of watching that Wednesday TV show on Netflix. I guess it's like from the Addams Family. Um,
Okay.
yeah, but mostly just watching the kids run around screaming. They're funny though. I just get a kick out of the boys. They're so funny because they don't get a lot of stuff, and so it's like on purpose, of course, and so like they're like, hey, the oldest boy comes up to me. He's like, hey, there's like cookies, and I was like, yeah, you want a cookie? And then he's like, he just kind of looks at me. He's like, yeah. And so, I
Who
went over to the
doesn't?
right. I went over to the cookie box, and they were just like, ah. They're just like getting the cookies. It was kind of funny, and I bought them each like a little monster truck. It was really inexpensive. They were just not remote control or anything. They're just the kind you kind of like push, and it kind of winds it up, and you let go, and it
Oh,
kind of
okay.
goes.
Yeah.
And boy, they were excited about those. They were screaming, running around, having fun with those. So that kind of thing's fun, for a Thanksgiving holiday. So yeah, it was a nice time. Then I just had a lot of dishes left. I mean, there was also like pies and things like that, desserts. But most people were pretty full from eating everything. So it was good. I'm
Yeah.
I'm trying to do it a yearly tradition. It was cool that my brother was there because he gave his runaway so he could show up. So in the future, maybe he won't be there because he truck drives.
Yeah.
Give or take what he wants to do with himself. But I felt like it was nice to have everybody there the first time, and then
Yeah.
in the future, if people don't want to come or whatever, they can't come. At least they know they can come in subsequent years or whatever.
Yeah.
So good time.
I'll be there.
Good
Oh, I
time.
mean, oh, you meant right.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
good time. Right. If there's leftover food, then I'd invite friends to come over. But no, it was, everybody basically gobbled up everything. It was a good thing, and I got some nice compliments on a couple of things, and Samantha complimented a few things, which was nice because she's like the cook in the family now. She works at Dante,
Right.
and she's I actually don't know exactly what she does. I think she's like a saute cook of some sort,
Hmm.
but I'm not 100% sure about that. I should actually ask her when she's there, but the problem is that I was just like exhausted. I had been cooking since 6 in the morning. We started
Yeah.
eating around 3, and I'm just sitting there thinking in my head, like, do I have everything? Does that, is there anything missing? Does anybody need anything?
Right.
I was just spent, so I wasn't really socializing too much. But yeah, it was cool. Whatever. And went and saw that Knives Out movie tonight, which is the. Did you ever see Knives Out? You probably didn't.
I wanted to, but I never
It's
never
really
did.
pretty good if you like one of those kind of comedic ensemble mystery
Yeah.
things, because it was pretty. I would say the first one, it was pretty difficult to figure out who did it, kind of thing. Like you watch it and you're trying to put all the pieces together, and then it's cleverly done. And but it's also it's a good movie. It's highly rated and everything, so I enjoyed it. The second one is also fun, but not necessarily as well constructed, in the sense of, like, it almost seems a bit obvious who's behind it in this one.
Hmm.
So it was sort of like, but okay, you know what I mean? Like it was okay. It's all
Right.
right. Just you know, still a fun movie. So I'm sure they'll make another one and everything. I guess this one's going to drop on Netflix. I think it was produced by Netflix, but they put it in theaters first, and I think like it's in theaters for like a month or something, and then it's going to drop to Netflix, something like
Huh.
that. So I don't know if that's a new thing they're doing. It's a wise thing to do that, because you can get that box office money, first, and then you're going to get that streaming money anyway.
Yeah, I was
So
gonna say.
put it on streaming after, if you have if you're producing it yourself. But yeah, I mean, I could have waited for it to come out on video, but it was like there wasn't too many good choices to go see things. I didn't want to see Wakanda Forever. I will see it
Gracious.
on Disney in like a month when it's on. You know what I mean? Like it'll be on Disney
Yeah.
in a month or two. So
Yeah.
I just know I'm going to watch it there, and I think I'd probably be able to tolerate that a little bit better. Whereas, watching it in the theater wasn't appealing to me. I don't know. It's got good reviews and everything, but I again, I mean, I read like the RT critic, one-liners and things like that, and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And again, it mostly just seems like it's like a homage for Chadwick Boseman,
Hmm.
and has some decent acting in it, but it all sounded a little bit wishy-washy to me, and this is the kind of the problem I had with Black Panther, was that there was just a lot of this sort of like, the critics liked it. And don't get me wrong, I thought Black Panther was good, but it was about as good as every other Marvel film to me. I didn't feel like it was over the top great or anything, but the way they were billing it back then, they were trying to say it's like a different kind of Marvel movie or something.
Yeah.
It's almost like a James Bond or something. And then I watch it and I'm just like, it's really not. It's just another origin story kind of thing. You know what I mean, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Just another guy in a suit.
yeah, doing stuff, and has to go to the United States or whatever, and run around like a cat man and stuff. And it's just like, all right, yeah, whatever, But and so I get the kind of the same vibe from this. Like I feel like it's just a little bit like, people, critics just seem to want to like it, kind of
Hmm.
thing, and it may be justified, it may be good. I'm not trying to knock it. It's just that I don't trust the critics so much that it's going to be able to hold my interest in the theater. So I'll wait for it to come out at home, and
Yeah.
then I'll give it a fair shake. And then there's some other things. There's that movie about those kids that are cannibals or something and stuff. I don't know.
What?
Yeah, it's like a love story, teenage romance thing, but it's like they're like
It's one hell of a love story.
it's like one of those things. It's like, yeah, but it's like one of those movies where like the kid, it's like Teen Wolf, right? The kid wakes up, he's a wolf. Although that's a comedy, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's the same. Hey, I'm a vampire. Like, let the right one in. One of the kids is a vampire. Same thing, except, oh, this person's a cannibal, and it's like, okay, I don't know,
It's like Teen
whatever.
Wolf, just not as funny.
Yeah, you're right. Hey, kids, watch the Teen Wolf. If you haven't seen the Teen Wolf, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Teen Wolf 2,
Not so much.
not as good.
Well, although Jason Bateman did move on to do some really good things.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so I saw that. That was all right, and yeah, I
I
think.
ended up working all weekend.
Oh, yeah.
you know. So I didn't see the kid, and and it was really weird because they were like, yeah, we need everybody here for Black Friday.
Right, right.
And I said, that's a furniture store. I go, are you guys for real? Like, what? People really come here for Black Friday? Like, there was no big sale. There was
Right.
no big, you know what I mean? There was no, hey, come on out the bounds. We're gonna have the biggest sale of Black Friday sale. It was nothing. There was nothing like that. Everything was normal. It was just a normal day.
Right.
And but it was insane. It was just like there were people everywhere. It's like, really? Like, where did all you people come from? But it was like that all weekend, man. It was just there was I'm sitting there trying to push couches through people. You don't know how many people will look you dead in your eyes, look at the couch that you're pushing, look back at your eyes, and then still stand there in your way. Like, am I in your way? It's just like, yeah, like there's only one path, and you're on it. Get out of the way. These people, man, I tell you, yeah, it was busy as hell. It surprised me because you figure Black Friday, you think people punching each other for TVs
Yeah.
or you know what I mean, bum rush in like a some mall or something like that. So I was just like, yeah, it's not going to be no big deal. But it was dumb. It was stupid. The line of cars out the back door for pickups. It's like, what is going on?
Yeah,
Crazy.
I get the sale thing. I do. I get some of especially the doorbusters. If you're a broke slob and you want to get that TV for an extra, couple hundred
Yeah.
less, and you want to hang out in front of the thing for 4 or 5 hours or longer to get it,
For a day or so.
yeah, whatever. Even if that's your thing, I get that aspect of it. The rest of the sales, they kind of go on all the time. Like like for a while,
Yeah.
it seems unlikely that it's going to be a 1 day sale anymore. It's kind of like they're going to run out of the items maybe, but they're going to the sale's going to keep going until they do. At this point,
You're right.
they want to make the sales. So I kind of with you. I'm not quite sure why the rush to go in and shop like this. It's surprising. It is, but
You're right.
it's like South Park Mall, Strongsville, crowded as hell, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Great Northern though, I don't know about Black Friday, but Great Northern like not as busy as South Park. I don't know why that is exactly, but maybe because
It,
the one anchor store Sears is closed and they haven't
yeah.
repopulated it yet, and that hasn't bringing people in. But
It's just weird, man. I want to go over there. It's like I want to go into Sears now that it's empty. I want to go walk around there.
I mean, I spent many hours in Sears growing
Right.
up, as we all know. It was
Exactly.
a big store for me. No,
I think.
Sears, like those people that didn't grow up or with a Sears or whatever, Sears was kind of like a higher end department store. Like Kmart was kind of the lower end department store. You would go in there and
Right.
just buy like garbage. I don't know how to explain Kmart. You'd find clothes and things and mops
They
and
had a
brooms and things.
cafeteria.
Yeah, you'd find knick-knack stuff. Kind of like if you go into Walmart and you need to get like small things, office supplies, paper, pencils, things. You'd
Yeah,
go to
it's a
Kmart for that stuff.
department store.
Right. And if you wanted to go to buy a TV or an appliance or some tools, and you can buy clothes, a computer, stereos,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. You would go to Sears, or you could. There was other places too, but
Yeah.
Sears was a place you could get a lot of stuff, and at the time they had good. I mean, certainly good tools, and they had pretty good appliances. They sold Kenmore and all those sorts of things that always had like good reviews, and they had service centers. So they would like service the stuff themselves and send the mechanics out and work on things. So buying things from Sears you kind of were in kind of like
And
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think a lot of what the Sears thing is, is the fact that it was around for so long, and it was majority of it was just because their catalog. Like you could
Yeah, Sears
order.
catalog. Yep.
That was like one of oh, we don't have it on the floor, but if you look through our catalog, we can order it and have it,
Yeah.
delivered or
Yeah.
whatever. So it's like everybody knew back in the day. There's a whole episode of MASH based on the Sears
Yeah.
catalog.
No, the Sears
You
catalog is a
know,
big deal. I mean, when I was,
So
I think we talked about this in the past, but when I was a kid, like the toys in there was extensive, and it was like
yeah,
there were toys in there you didn't know existed until you looked through that
right.
catalog, and you were like, "Holy crap!" And you start
Yeah,
circling all the things you want for Santa to bring you,
yeah.
because it was all in that damn catalog.
The
Yeah,
Sears catalog was had the Mandela effect because you would see something in there and be like, "I swear I saw this. This is a thing. It's
yeah,
true." People are like, "That's never been made." You're like, "No, I saw it."
yep. And the thing is it's like you never get any of that stuff either. So,
Yeah, 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 yeah. You never get it.
you never got any of that. You'd always get something at the local toy stores.
And they always
Um,
had the section that was like the Radio Shack toys. Like,
right,
here's the
right,
cheap remote control car, and here's the,
right.
you know.
Radio
So
Shack was always overpriced though too. Like anything that was in there was just way. It was like just too much money. It
yeah,
wasn't that good of quality, and it was too much money. It's like the weirdest thing about Radio Shack. But occasionally, I had to go to Radio Shack for something. Like I was always in that store getting something
a
for something.
wire, a
Yeah,
cable,
right. A flashlight bulb. Who knows?
yeah,
I mean, just
batteries.
it's just something that they had that I could just get at the time. That's just how shopping was. And yeah, and sometimes, I think we talked about this too, but like when you were looking for something in particular, you had to go to a lot of different stores to try to find it sometimes. And you might not be able to
Oh yeah,
find it, and then other times you would. You go to like if you wanted a particular toy in North Olmsted, let's say, which was like a shopping mecca, still is. But back then there was like what, 3, 4 toy stores: Children's
right.
Palace, Kitty City, KB Toy, and there was probably other ones. And then your department stores had toy sections too, and
Oh,
and
the best.
you would go into these different places trying to find something specific. I mean, obviously you can still do some of this now. You can go to Target or you can go to Walmart, etc. But we have the web now, and you can kind of see if something's in stock or not fairly easy. You don't got to drive around, go
Right.
into places to see if something's there or not. Yeah, and then you had all of those lower class department stores like Zare and Hills and Gold
Yeah.
Circle.
Uncle Bill's. They
Right,
had all this
yeah.
stuff.
Woolworths for a while too, right?
Oh, they
Woolworths.
had another store with a cafeteria in it.
Yeah.
Any store that you can walk around and you could smell food cooking, that's pretty cool. I was always a big fan of that as a kid.
It was
They had
always
like,
it was weird because I mean I would eat at Woolworths sometimes.
yeah,
Sometimes somebody I went to
sure,
school with would be the waitress.
yeah, that's true.
But it was always kind of weird because it was because it was
There's just there's just people walking around pushing carts shopping, and you're sitting there having a hot dog
well, I
and a
mean, you can
milkshake.
do that now. I mean, you can go to Subway inside Walmart or any of these bigger things like, Costco and
Yeah,
things like that and stuff. But this was like a diner. It was like a
yeah,
diner
like a counter.
inside.
Yeah,
Yeah, it had like the stools and the counter and it had the tables. And it was totally 60s style that
so
lasted almost up until the 1990s, I suppose.
yeah,
And yeah, and you could just get whatever, like a diner type food experience. It wasn't like a fast food place, it
yeah.
would be like ham and eggs or
Grilled cheese and fries and
right,
milkshakes and
yeah, just
yeah.
whatever, just like there's just a restaurant that was part of the
Imagine,
store.
imagine back in the day, people would be like, "So you got a job?" You're like, "Yeah, I'm cooking." They'd be like, "Oh, really? Yeah, yeah. Where are you cooking at?" Woolworths.
Right,
Like, what?
right, yeah, just kind of bizarre, but um, yeah, no,
I sidetracked you. Sorry.
no, it's yeah, it's anyway. I know some people probably hate this nostalgia trip we always go on, but I don't like. I'm not one of those people that sit there and tell people like it was better back then because I don't think it was. Like I don't think a lot of
No.
things were better at all. I think a lot of things sucked. There's some things that were better back then, but I think the majority of it was just a lot of people look at things with rose-colored glasses, remembering the best moments of the times they
Yeah.
had
Right.
back then. But
Right.
I recall that I would say 95% of the time that I spent back then, I was fucking bored. I was just
Right.
bored.
Oh my God, so bored.
So nothing to do. There was just, there was no internet. There was no hooking up online to watch a new movie or something, everything you
Nope.
did needed money that you didn't have,
Right.
and you just I mean, a lot of it. I suppose it sort of forced you to be friends with other people so you could experience some of the things they had. Like I don't know, they had different movies or things you could borrow and stuff.
Well, yeah.
You had to sort of socialize a bit more, but
That is.
it's just so boring, man. Just so
That's the.
much boredom.
That's what I was just thinking. Was like, see, like, I don't want to be that guy, but everybody's spoiled nowadays because, like, if you're sitting there and you're like, I want to watch a movie, you can pretty much pull up any movie that you want. You know what I mean? At will. You
Yeah.
can just be like, click, 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 and pull it up. Whereas, like, when we were kids, you'd be like, oh, I'm gonna watch TV. Well, you had to either watch Wide World of Sports or like some cooking show. It was just like you were forced to watch whatever you had to watch, and it's like you would
Yeah.
you would make yourself watch the most horrible shows or movies because you had no choice, because you were just like, well, there's that, you know what I mean? You're like, I'm so bored, I can't get a hold of anybody because
Right.
well, it's impossible to get a hold of anybody, and it's like I got nothing to do. I guess I'm watching this
Right.
whatever stupid.
Yeah.
I've seen so many dumb movies or shows in my life that I've just been like, why did I watch this? And
Right.
it's like, oh yeah, that's right, I was bored. You know what I mean?
Right. Bored. Or your friends would come over, or you'd go over their place, and you just stand around in the driveway, staring at
Yeah,
each other, and they'd be like, "What do you want to do?" And I don't know. What do you want to do? And you just end
yeah,
up like walking down the street or something because that's all there was to
yeah,
do, or you'd play like a sport that you didn't really want to play, but there's nothing else to do. Like you'd throw the ball around or something, or play basketball, and it wouldn't be fun, So you would wander a lot. I mean, when Donnie and
yeah,
I, when we first met, and we're in high school at this point, but like freshman year and stuff, we were still kind of just like wandering around most of the time, even at that
yeah,
point. And we had jobs, we had money. I mean, we
yeah,
went to the comic book store and stuff, but still, like I couldn't tell you how many times I just like walked through the park or hung out in Don's driveway or something. We'd walk
yeah.
home and stuff. It's not like I would walk over to your place and there would be like a lot to do. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah,
Like,
no,
it,
unless
like
you wanted to chop some wood or
right.
like some leaves.
And even when we got to like senior year and stuff, and Don would, we'd go back to my place because we'd eventually have to go back to the school and pick people up because we got out of
Yeah,
school early and other people didn't. And like we'd just crash. There's nothing to do. We'd turn on the
yeah,
TV and we'd be asleep. And this is when cable existed. I mean, I can't tell you. So it's like way better now. I mean, like I can go anywhere now and at least pick up my phone and there's like stuff to look at. At least there's
yeah,
something to kill the boredom for a while.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It takes some time to get me to a point where like I'm bored of my phone, and then I'm just kind of I don't know, just sitting there like, yeah. So yeah, rose-colored glasses, the stuff in the old
yeah.
days.
So much better nowadays. And the point is, folks, is that Kevin and I are telling you that we will never tell you that it was way better back in
Right? No,
the
not at
day.
all. There's lots of people we know that will, but I am
Oh
not in
yeah,
their camp. No,
yeah,
they're
yeah.
they're crazy because
It's,
shit. I remember one time I was with Don Cease, and we were back in my dad's apartment or whatever, and we were literally crying. We were literally crying, discussing how fucking bored we were. That's
yeah,
we were so
yeah.
fucking bored that we were sobbing over it because it's just like you
It's
just said,
pitiful.
there's no TV. Like there was just nothing on. Three channels of fucking news and like Gomer Pyle or something on one of the
Yeah,
UHF
yeah,
channels, and just there's no money. We had no money at that time because we didn't have a job. We were too young or whatever it was, and there was nowhere to go, or the weather outside was just horrid.
right.
You couldn't go anywhere anyway, and you just. I know, like a lot of kids are like, well, just make something up, play a board game
Yeah,
or do something. But you've done all of it, like
yeah,
you've done that stuff like 1,000 times. You don't want to do it anymore. You hate it. That's why
yeah,
kids snap and they just start burning shit down,
yeah. Right.
breaking shit in the
Well,
house. She can't handle it. It was so boring.
like you said, even when we were seniors, it was like even when we were seniors, we were bored because we'd go up to the mall. and we'd hang out, and we would just wait, and somebody would show up and be like, "I got something to do," and it'd be like, "Okay, sweet, we're all doing something." Otherwise you would sit there. If it wasn't for security kicking us out, we would never leave. We would.
Right.
It's just like, well, we might as well just sit here and do nothing because there's chairs and there's a roof. But they'd be like, you gotta go.
Yeah.
And
And when we
and
did go someplace, it would just be like Spruce Woods or something and just sit
yeah,
there and do nothing.
or the metro parks until 11,
Yep.
or
Just drive through the
but
metro parks or something. We had
you
cars, you could drive places, but you couldn't go to a bar. You couldn't go anywhere. Like shit's all closed.
you'd sit at your friend's house for hours in the driveway, and it's getting dark. And you're just like sitting there, and you're just like, "Oh God, this is so boring." And it's
Yeah.
like, well, it's time to go home, and you're like, "I don't want to go home." And
It's,
it's like, well, you got to go home. And it's like, yeah, but I've been sitting here bored all day. It's like I feel like I should be doing something. I got to get something out of this.
right. No, I know man,
Right.
it's so crazy. You just see like people on TV like whittling or something. You're like, what should I whittle? Should I
Yeah.
like get a knife and a stick of wood and make something out of it? Like you're just
That's why
it's so bad.
people would be like, well, let's go to Anderson's house, and I'd always tell them, like, you don't want to go to my house because if my dad sees us sitting around for more than 30 seconds, we're going to work. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right, and
he
nobody
doesn't want
wanted to do
see us
that
sitting-
either. Like that wasn't
Right.
a boredom killer. That was just torture.
Yeah, that was.
We had jobs already. We didn't need to like with our days off do additional work. Like
Right.
no, thank you, sir. But I did whatever. I was a team player.
Why not?
So here's a question for you then.
All right.
This is the thing I've been. A lot of times people talk about United States being the best country in the world, etc. And I don't know. I haven't been to every country in the world. Okay.
Right.
And I haven't done a poll, and I know there are polls that people put together online, though their criteria of what makes a great country great and all this sort of stuff. And a lot of times, I think like when people look at the United States, they say, "Oh, this is the greatest country in the world," and I think a lot of the reasons why they say that, okay, is because like in general, right, you have a level of security here, like you don't have to worry about say what's going on in Russia and the Ukraine, right? Somebody kind of grabbing you, at least these days, and sending you into a war to die, or being invaded by another country. So you're relatively safe here. Not necessarily safe from crime, but,
Right.
it's maybe not as bad as it is in a lot of other places. And then the economy is good, versus other countries. And you can work and get a job and an education, and you can then make money and buy the things you want in life, if you put your effort into it and that kind of thing, and succeed if you want to. And bad luck is everywhere, though. I mean, some people get struck down early with diseases, and I'm generalizing here, okay?
Yeah.
But in general, you have this ability to do this stuff without being, I don't know, marginalized, enslaved, put into a camp somewhere, and all this kind of
Right.
shit,
You
right?
can spit on a Tuesday. You're allowed to.
Yeah, and you have a lot of freedoms, etc. But what I kind of always sort of I would watch a lot of, because I was very curious, and I want to point out that I'm not pro-communism in any way. This is just something I noticed about documentaries on communist countries, not the current ones today, as well as the ones in the past, right? And I realized that a lot of these countries are, and a lot of these videos and things are controlled, right? So they're showing you the good side and all this sort of stuff, and they're not showing you the miserable people and all that kind of thing. But what I've noticed in a lot of these kinds of things is that people seemed a lot happier in these videos. And I didn't think that for a minute that people living in, say, North Korea were super happy people, right?
Right.
I realized that there's probably some that are because they're part of the elite. But I think that people out in the outskirts are probably suffering and living a pretty terrible life.
Oh yeah.
But, you know, but I watched these really interesting documentaries about three countries that were communist that eventually, became capitalist. And it was about East Germany, right? Joining back with West Germany. It was about Romania. I think it was Romania, Czechoslovakia. I think it was those three. And they talked about, how they were communist. And then they talked about the transition uh, from communism to capitalism and, democracy in their countries, etc. And they would interview people, and they would talk to them about, the good and the bad and all this sort of stuff. And a lot of people, and this wasn't done by a communist country. I mean, this is, free news organization kind of thing, like not under any kind of political thing. But a lot of these people, not all, but a lot, kind of preferred living under communism. And the reason that they gave was the fact that they were taken care of.
Yeah.
So they didn't have to work. Well, they did, right?
Well,
But
they
I,
didn't have to
but
think about anything.
right, like they didn't have to worry that the place they live was going to be taken away from them because it was, assigned to them. They didn't have to pay rent on it, etc., right? So they didn't have to worry about where they were going to live, if they could make their bills, if they were going to be able to pay for their heat or their water, etc. Food, the staples of food. So your basic potatoes and things that you would eat normally were very, very cheap because they still made money in the Soviet Union. They didn't get rid of money, right? But everything was controlled by the state. Production was controlled by the state. So staples, bread and potatoes and things, up until the very, very end, by the way. I don't want to get anybody writing in and getting overly critical about this. The very, very end, they ran out of food, but there's a long history behind that. But for the
That was
most
going to
part,
happen.
yeah, for the most part, is the people that were there, they had all their food, free medical care, right? And they had free daycare. They had people that would come over and help with the daycare. They had recreational centers that were free to go to, etc. Right? You go to the movies. I don't know if it was free, but it was very inexpensive. You had lots of community involvement and this sort of stuff. But I think the main thing is that it lifted the worry off of you because you didn't have to sit there and wonder how to survive.
Right.
Survival was guaranteed. The KGB basically got rid of most of the crime, so you didn't have to worry about there being murderers or drug dealers or anything because those people would just disappear. Take that for what it is. But and certainly there's a lot of injustices and things that went on too. I realize that, but I'm just talking about the general person, right? That was kind of going through their day to day. That person had no worries, in the sense of they would come home and they would be with their family. They would have their family time. They would have their vodka. They could watch their TV. Uncle Vlad could come over and play the accordion. I guess they
Oh,
could all clap and dance and do their thing or play the guitar. They could go camping. The whole they have that weird kind of summer house thing where they call it like a Dachau. I don't forget what it is. And so they would have summer houses and winter places. Some people did, and
yeah.
and granted, you didn't have, and everybody had cars, right? There's public transportation. Not everything infrastructure wise, it wasn't great and everything. Although back then it was better than it probably is today because a lot of places just run down and it's not organized like it was. But you had, I guess what I'm trying to say is you didn't have this as a person. You didn't have this overbearing fear hanging over you all the time. Where I
Right.
think in the United States we do. I think that you constantly have to worry in the United States about what you're doing, because if you don't do it right, everything can be taken away from you. You know, your house can be taken away if you don't pay if you don't pay the bill, but if you don't pay your taxes, it's gone, right? You're out on the street. Your job can go away. It can take your salary away from you. You might not be able to find another one. You might not be able to find another one that pays as well. You know, your whole lifestyle could change. Everything about what you do, like if you get struck down with a disease, the money that you're paying into the hospitals and the hospital bills, like you don't have enough savings anymore, you've been wiped out, you have nothing to leave your family. All of these things that go on, like, just weighs on people. And I think that when you're measuring like greatest country in the world kind of thing, what I think is like you should measure happiness. Like, how many people are happy living in the country that they live in? And if you look around in the United States, especially after that last election, boy, I wouldn't say it's the United States. I think people around here are unhappy as shit. There's
But
lot.
then again,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead. No,
no,
I was just gonna say it just seems that that's what people want to be. People don't want to be happy. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm jumping in here too early.
no. It's a good conversation. Yeah.
Because it just seems that everybody wants to be angry. Like, people are going into places looking to be angry. You know what I mean? They're like looking for.
But what's that? But ask yourself this: what's that being caused by?
Probably because of all the stuff that you said, like all the stuff that's coming down on them when they're out and about or whatever. That's the only time for them to be ahead of it or to be above it or to be, you know what I mean? Not so much crushed by it.
It's
but
fear,
more like,
right? It's fear.
yeah,
They're living in fear of things being taken away from them. They're being told on news channels and things, hey, the left or the right wants to come in and take this away from you. They're going to come and do X, Y, and Z. Like, I remember way back when Rush Limbaugh was first starting his radio show, right? And my dad would listen to that show. And my dad wasn't like a big right-wing thing. I don't even know if that was a thing back then. You know, I guess there could have been. There's always people that were. But my dad wasn't that political or nothing, right? But he would listen to the show because, you know, the message that Limbaugh was saying, you know, back then was that, hey, these feminazis and these left-wingers, you know, they want this, that, and the other thing. And my dad told me one time, he was like, he goes, because he used to drive that Park Avenue, which is kind of a big car. And he was like, you know, he's like, those people out there, they're putting stickers on cars like ours because they're telling us that they're gas guzzlers and they don't want those cars on the road. And he was kind of upset about it. And I was thinking to myself at the time, I'm thinking, did somebody do that to your car? Or did you just hear about it happening to somebody somewhere? And of course it never happened to him, right? But that's the thing. So then it sits inside my dad, you know, that these people want to do that to him, you know, and it's this fear, and it's this, like, how does he handle that? And this news is constantly crushing people with these fears about what's going to happen and who's going to take, you know, it's just like these not the Me Too, the Black Lives Matter riots, right? When those things were going on. And there was these people all talking about, like, you know, I'd like them to come to my house and stuff, and I've heard they're going to come to the suburbs and things like that. And it's just like, common sense will tell you, they're not coming to the suburbs, man. They're not walking all the way to the suburbs to what? To break into houses? They weren't even breaking into anybody's, like, apartments and stuff in the city, really. They were just smashing up some businesses and looting shit because people like free shit, and the cops weren't doing very much. But the thing is it's like, no, it becomes this thing because the news media comes on and tells people, they've got some audio of some crazy guy somewhere on the street somewhere that's all riled up saying some crazy shit like, we're coming to your houses next, we're coming into your suburbs, we're coming to get you, and then and then everybody's like, he said it, so now let's go buy guns and let's get ready to go. And it's just like, shit's not gonna happen, man. Fuck. But it's like, but that fear of all kinds of things. The news media is just constant with fear about everything, fucking everything, and it just sits over people, and they're trying to get through their daily lives with all this nonsense. Yet, if you actually just shut that shit off and go outside,
Do your thing.
none of that shit's going on. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
none of it's happening. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just here. I remember somebody was talking to me when the marches were going on and stuff, and they were from another country. This girl I knew, and she was like talking to me, and she's like, you should be out there, and you should be marching with them. And I'm like, look, I live in Cleveland, man. There's no fucking march going on here. There's nothing going on. Like, people here are just going to work. It's not like what you're seeing on TV. It's not like there's police and fires everywhere and shit. In Cleveland, it's just, it's people are going to work. It's it. There's nothing. There's nothing for me to do. If I lived in one of those other towns, maybe I'd march or do something. I don't know what I would do. Probably, still not do anything. But the thing is it's like this fear sits on people, and I think yes, I think that it becomes this thing that becomes overwhelming for people. And we are this country that is on a lot of medication, a lot of antidepressants, a lot of anti-anxiety medications, a lot of people smoking dope, a lot of people drinking, and other vices buried in all of it, because like the stress of what we're doing to ourselves is immense, and we just don't seem to want to stop it, really, I guess, or people just don't. I think people want to know what's happening so bad, but yet they don't realize how it's impacting them, like how it's changing their mentality, and they're not happy. People are not happy, and it's like you said. Then they come in and they're just miserable because they've been feeling miserable all this time, and they don't see any good. It's all bad,
Yeah.
and they're just venting, and they're angry and upset, and this cycle continues, and it makes the whole country kind of like a powder keg. And I don't know, but I think like if I watch news online from other countries, it's not as fear mongering as it is in the United States. It's not necessarily great news. It's not super fulfilling or anything. But it's
all the,
go ahead.
I was gonna say it's all the same. The news anywhere is all the same stuff: death, destruction.
It is, but it's not.
It's just a matter of how it's delivered.
Right. It's not with the rhetoric behind it.
Yeah.
It's like you watch the BBC or something. It's just very dry English people discussing things, and it's a bit more tame. And so you wonder, like in Canada, they're very polite, nice people. Their news might be a little bit more tamped down than ours, and not as fear mongering. I mean, they like watching curling, for Christ's sake, right? Yeah. So. You don't end up with a lot of crazy violence over there. You get some, but you're going to get crazy people everywhere, right? But for the most part, I don't know if they live in the same fear-mongering environment we do. So maybe their quality of life is better.
Yeah,
and
that's why they're all so happy.
Right, and so going back to like the communist country thing, I think a lot of those people were happy in these videos and things because they just didn't have this. The state was lying to them. Of course, this is all wrong, but telling them that everything's great, and when you're getting all of this positivity all the time, you're kind of like, hey man, I got a great life. You know what I mean? Like, woo, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I got a job, I got money, I got my vodka, I got my woman, I got my family, my kids are getting educated, we got health care. We go to the park. We live our lives. It's nice life. I see family and friends. It's good, And
everything's great. You can't walk on that side of the street on a Tuesday, but whatever.
Right? No, for sure. There's lots of problems there, right? They just pick you up, and move your whole family to another country, and you go slave labor or something. I get it.
Right.
Like don't get me wrong.
But for the most part,
I'm saying your average. I'm thinking like your 1970-ish, or 60s or 70s, like. Russian was living a pretty good life. Their economy was on the scale of the United States. they had jobs, they worked. There wasn't a whole lot going on in terms of war. They were just kind of just kind of had a decent economy. They had a great space program. They had the first people up in space. They had the Sputnik, all this sort of stuff.
The monkey.
Yeah, right. Like the dog and shit. And so, they fell apart. But obviously, communism is not the answer. But I don't necessarily think that where we are right now is the answer either. And I don't necessarily think that what we have is the best system on Earth. I think it rots people out, man. It's like the economy's great, but it's just like it's at a cost that's just like it's like a poisoned well in a way in this country, and it's like, the education system in this country is it's so fucked up because, like, if you look at the way schools are funded, right, in Ohio anyway, it comes off of property taxes. Well, the most property tax money you're going to get is in the rich neighborhoods, right? The biggest houses, the most expensive houses. So they're going to have the nicest schools. They're going to have the nicest money that goes into the schools. So the rich people are going to be able to afford all of the best teachers, the best facilities, the best everything. And then your people in your lower income neighborhoods with poor living and poor property tax can't afford all that sort of stuff and end up just, getting the minimum, right? And so you end up with this complete divide that's really unfair in terms of the way this country is. And it seems to me that, like, it should just be streamlined across the board. Like, if you're educating kids, you're educating kids. Like, just, pool the money like we do for every other thing. It's not like we go to the military and we say, like, okay, you guys are going to get funded by this town here, and they're going to buy you guys like good body armor and tanks and planes and stuff. But you guys are going to get funded by East Cleveland. So here is a musket that we found, from the old war museum, and we only got one, and we got one dull knife. If you guys want to sharpen it, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, why do we have organized everything, but with schools we don't? With schools we have this thing, and it's because, in my opinion, it's because the elite are controlling things to make it this way, because they want their kids to have the best, and they don't want to dumb it down for them, and so they're controlling it at that level. But I think that's just part of the problem. You're creating this divide, you're creating this animosity within this country. Go ahead.
It's kind of strange how you have, like you said, if you have all these rich people who put all their money into it so that their kids can have all the best stuff.
Right.
Well, their kids are the ones who feel entitled and don't do anything to begin with.
Right.
And it's like, well, why are we wasting all the best stuff on them when you got kids who are who are in the inner city who are like, you know what? Only way I'm getting out of here is an education.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of people who are like that, who are like, I got to work and I got to do what I got to do to get out of here.
Yeah.
But they just can't.
Yeah.
And it's stupid. It's the dumbest
the whole ghetto thing in the United States is fucking ridiculous to me. I realize that these things cost money and you need to have solutions. But the thing is it's like, these fucking places are war zones. I mean, we did this on What's Happening in Cleveland that we did for about half a year or whatever we did that show.
Yeah.
And the thing is that we were talking about deaths and shootings ad nauseum out of Cleveland. And Cleveland's not that big of a fucking town. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of major cities, it's not that major. And we've got constant murders going on. And if this was happening in the west side suburbs, I mean, the noise that would be created and the level of action that would come down to handle it, I mean, it would be immense. I mean, you know what I mean? There would be like 1 million cops. There would be like new laws. They would be in people's homes, seizing fucking everything because, some kids on the west side were getting murdered all the time. Like, it would get solved. But it is like this fucked up thing in this country where it's happening in the ghetto, so we just don't give a shit about it, or whatever it is. And it's like, you know, that's another thing, with communism, in the sense of like they didn't really have ghettos,
Right.
because
Because everything was the same.
everything was the same, and the people that were a problem, obviously they got rid of those people, but they everything was invested, and everybody had a place to live, and everybody was given an opportunity to work, and all of these other things. And so you didn't live in poverty in that sense.
Right.
There was this sense of equality, so that it was kind of a mostly crime free kind of environment. But the United States could do it. We have enough money. You could make the investment. You could go in and solve these problems. It's a big lift. I realize that. It's not something that you expect local cities and communities to just kind of like put more money in or hire more police to solve the problem, because it's never
Right.
worked and it's not going to work again. It's a bigger problem that needs a bigger conversation about a country, and say, like, how do we solve this problem, right? Because it's cyclical. You get these kids that grow up in these neighborhoods and they become these same types of people, and it just keeps going on and on and on. Until you come up with a new solution to solve it, it's going to go on forever, and it's like, it's ridiculous. We don't need to have it. But again, there's a reason behind it, that the elite people want to keep certain groups down. I don't know. But it's like, there's plenty of opportunity in the United States. Fuck, how many places do you look around that are like trying to hire people to get
Right.
jobs and all this kind of stuff right now? And yet you still have all these people living in poverty, et cetera. And you can get into the politics of it. Maybe they're being enabled and all this sort of stuff, being paid off, Social Security, welfare. I get all that.
Yeah.
I'm not here to try to answer all these political things. What I'm saying is that there's a way to fix it, and the country isn't doing it, and hasn't been doing it for over 100 years or so. It's crazy. I don't know if there was ghettos in the time of like the Revolutionary War and shit. Okay, so maybe
Yeah.
they came
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
a little bit later or something. I don't know. I have no idea. But it's something that like capitalism could fix, and yet we live in an environment of winners and losers. And I just think that if you really just, my message here is that when you sit down and you think about it, are you happy? Are you happy? Not for the moment, not happy that you're going to get a new PlayStation game, etc. But like, are you happy with where your life is? Are you happy living in the United States? Don't think about like how horrible it'll be someplace else, but just think to yourself, like, where you're at right now. Are you living a happy life? And
Yeah.
and I would think, though, that like, if people were being honest with themselves, a lot of people aren't. I would say a greater percentage aren't than are, and that's just based on the fact that most of the people I talk to are pretty miserable most of the time. They're pretty
Yeah.
sad and depressed, or they're on stuff. They might be happy, but that's because they're blasted right now. They're wired up, or they're toked up, or whatever. They're on some kind of prescription medication. They're doing stuff to get by. And I mean, how many people just hate going to work? Just hate going to work. Hate it. Like, it's, God, man, it's got to be like 95% of people, like,
Right.
just moaning and groaning, not wanting to go to work. And it's crazy to me, because like, I know not everybody can do whatever they want. Some guy's got to clean out the porta potty.
Yeah.
He's got to have that job. There's people that have to do these kinds of jobs. But the thing is it's like, the do we really need to work 40 hours a week? Do we? Like, we do to pay
Yeah.
our bills, but they've managed to make it so they pay us just enough, right? So that we have to work 40 hours a week in order to pay, our bills to survive, rent,
Yeah.
gas, electricity, a little bit of spending cash, etc. You got to work that 40-hour week. But the thing is it's like, do we really have to do that? Or is it really more like we could have only worked, like, say, half that, 20 hours a week, and maybe the rich guy at the top isn't going to get as much money, right? And the thing is it's like, if you had those 5 extra days or whatever, 5 days off, 2 days of work, something along those lines, and you could do what you wanted to do with yourself, people would be more creative. I think people would be able to do more and express more. You could do your comedy more. You know, Tom could play in his band more. You know, everybody would be able to enjoy their lives more and be able to like do the things they want to do. But instead, we're kind of enslaved to the economy. And, you know, this is again where I'm saying like you have to go to work and make the money to pay the bills, to afford the things you have, because if you don't, it'll all be taken away from you. You can't just suddenly be like, I'm going to just stop working. And I mean, you can, but you're not going to have all the things you have anymore because somebody's got to pay for them. Right. And it's like, and so somebody figured out a way to kind of be like, they give us those 2 days off, which for most people are like recovery days. Like you kind of got to sleep because you've been tired, but then you got all this other shit you got to catch up on and do. You got to do your wash. You got to take the car in to get X, Y, and Z done. You got to take the kids soccer practice and back. You got to do all these things that your weekend's blown out. You didn't do anything that you really enjoyed. You were just catching up on the shit that you couldn't do because you're tired all week from working all the time.
Yeah, that's right.
And so like you know life you're going to do this until you're 65, and you know half the people will be fucking dead by then, and you're supposed to enjoy your life then. You're too fucking old to do anything really. I mean, you can do some stuff, but you know all the fun fucking, you're not going to go fucking mountain climbing and bungee jumping and shit at 65. You know, it's crazy. I mean, they show those one-off crazy fuckers that do it, but most people are going to have like bone spurs and slip discs like I do, or, you know, you do, and be completely out of shape like most Americans are, and not be able to do anything because people are they're just overworked and they're just trying to have some stuff and watch their Netflix and sit on the couch because they're just drained and they've never been able to really enjoy their lives. And I know the United States is not the only country like this. I realize that, but I just think that there's probably some way we can get to a better system. We can get to a point where we can find a country that has a better example of happiness, like how to live in maybe with less. Maybe our economy isn't as strong, but maybe people wake up more pleasant. I don't know.
It'll never happen.
Not in our lifetime, it won't.
People are too busy.
Because people are too scared. They don't want to change.
Kind of give you, before we finish this up, like just to go along with your point there about, you know, you do all this working and you retire when you're old, and it's like now you're supposed to do all this stuff. Listen, I'm not even retired. I can't ride roller coasters anymore.
Right.
They make me sick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like I had all my chances to go ride my roller coasters years ago.
Yeah.
And now I can't do it. So it's like, if I didn't do it before, I'm definitely not doing it now. And you think I'm going to go bungee jumping or parachuting? It's like, I can't even ride in a teacup without getting sick.
Right. But I mean, the thing is that you can't, you can do the things you want to do, but you have so little time to do it.
Right.
That it's not going to get you anywhere. You know, like you need more time, but you can't have that time because you have to work to get by. And they only give you enough, you know, by sucking up all the days you have so that they can have a fully staffed place with you know, and pay you the minimum to do it. And it's like how this system is orchestrated is just to keep people enslaved to this capitalist system.
It's just like I just noticed I got 40 hours of PTO, paid time off, from this job. Mm-hmm. So it's like, hey, I could take a whole week off and I still get paid.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, when do you want to do it? And I'm looking at him like, I don't know.
Right.
Because I'm like, he's like, oh, do you want to set some plans up or something? It's like, well, no, because I don't have money to go do anything.
Right. Exactly.
And it's like now I'm falling back into that old school situation where it's like I'm sitting there thinking to myself like, so you want to spend a whole week just being bored?
Right.
And it's like, I mean, obviously it's kind of impossible nowadays, but
right.
You know what I mean?
But you're right.
That mentality.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I don't have the money to go spend. I go do something, and it's like It's just weird, you know. So it's
Right.
like I
You almost
worked
want
all
to
this
trade
to
in
get.
you almost want to trade in those days if you can to just get the money for them because, at least it gives you the opportunity to have money to have the things you need or pay off the things so that later in life you could potentially go on a vacation or something.
Yeah, right.
No, it's
I want to
exactly.
take the vacation pay and work that week. It's like I want to do both.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay, no, I mean that's a lot of people, and a lot of people choose that, in those places where they can exchange their vacation for pay because, they, they can't afford it, or they can't mentally get there. Like they just
Yeah,
are not leaving work behind because work has consumed them, and vacation isn't a vacation. It's just that worry that, hey, my position's going to be given to somebody else. The things that I have set up are going to fail. All of the project I've been working on isn't going to get done. I'm not going to get the credit for it, etc. Fear it hangs over them, so they work to death. And the other part of their life, the things that they really want to do, they can't do because it's controlled by this fear. And I don't know. I think that people have to take a long, hard look and try to figure out a way to get out of this system and realize, I guess, that we're being controlled by fear and that we have to kind of get out of it, step out of
yeah.
it, and realize that maybe there's another way of doing things and that, we don't need to be afraid of everything. But yeah, that's hard. That's easy to say, but people people are really afraid of losing everything they have, and that's because the country's set it up without a safety net. Maybe if we could ever get the government to have that universal, what do they call it? Universal. It's like a universal paycheck, where the
Yeah.
government just pays people.
Huh.
Because I think that like we're getting to a point where automation is going to take away so many jobs, and the rich people, which is already happening, are so incredibly rich that we have to take their money away from them and give it to other people because automation has made them so rich that
Yeah.
it doesn't allow poor people to have a chance. I mean, wealth distribution isn't necessarily fair, but how much money do you need? When you've got tens of billions of dollars, what are you
All of
going to
it.
buy, right? Like, what are you going to buy with that?
Hmm.
And what we're seeing is, as crazy as it is we're seeing
Sure.
these super billionaires buying spaceships, right?
Yeah.
Building their own space vessels to go,
Companies.
yeah, out into the Mars and the other things, and building satellites and building robots and everything else, like because they're so ridiculously rich. This is where they're taking it, and I'm not saying that's all bad, but again, there's this huge division, and like for instance, most banks are getting rid of tellers. They're replacing them now with automated kiosks. Not just ATMs, but you might go into like a Bank of America right now, and when you go up to the window, it's a screen, and then somebody appears on the screen and talks to you through the screen,
Hmm.
and you don't even have a person in front of you,
I was
and,
gonna say they might not be a real person either.
right, it could be AI controlled before too long. And and this is what's happening because they're like, well, we don't need to pay all these people. But what do you do with all those people?
Yeah.
They can have all these minimum paying jobs, these service jobs, but they don't pay enough. And
Yeah.
so like the rich people at Bank of America at the top are giving each other, $50 million a year bonuses because they've saved so much money getting rid of all these employees and replacing it with automation. But those people
Yeah.
over here are, they barely have enough money to survive. And I think as this keeps happening, you're going to have to reach in and say, as a country, you're going to have to say to rich people, okay, you've got X amount of dollars. We're going to take that money, through taxes or whatever it is, which, we try to do, but we're not good at with rich people anyway.
Right.
And we then distribute that money to all the people so that people have a universal basic income. That's what it's called. And you would get, like, say, $30,000 a year sent to you,
Right.
and you can use that money on top of the money that you work. Or if you can't work, you still get that money so that you know,
Survive.
well, survive and not have the rug pulled out from under you. If you
Yeah.
become disabled, you become disability and all these things. And a lot of this stuff's already happening. I mean, a lot of this stuff, like the government pays people disability, the government pays for Medicaid, the government pays for Medicare, there's Social Security and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, if you took all of that and you turn it into this universal basic income, then people would be able to have a safety net of at least a minimum that they can survive on, and not be completely wiped out because they don't have anything. Something happens, an accident, you can't work, and you get stripped. But anyway, we are way long, so I'm going to end the show. But I think everybody gets kind of the point of what I was trying to talk about. It was just, I know, kind of a big topic this week, guys. We can't always talk about Star Wars, but it was just something I wanted to talk about. And Donnie and I, these are the kind of good conversations Don and I have sometimes, because we both can relate to the message, and it's just something like, I don't have any answers, but
We
it's
got people that are so rich in this country, they're sending cars into space with dummies behind them.
Yep. Yeah. Yes.
How about that? I
Yep.
just wanted to throw that one in there because when you were talking about
No, it's true. It's
it.
it's. I mean, we are at a point where Amazon is like such a big company that they couldn't use the post office to deliver shit. They had to create their own post office to deliver shit, their own delivery system. You know what I mean? Across the country, because the fucking post office wasn't enough. You know what I mean? Think about how big the post office is, and it's like,
geez.
and they're just like the freaking thing is so giant, Amazon, that they're just like, we got to make our own post office to deliver shit, because the regular post office is no good. Fine, I get it, it's not, but it's the scale of it that's insane. That's how much money that's going on. And look at it. Look what Amazon's done. They've created this automated hellhole for these people to work in. And some people, that's all they've got. That's the only job they have in their neighborhood, and they're getting paid for it. But at the top, they're thinking about all the time, how do we automate this? How do we get rid of Jim, Julie, Jan, and Nancy and replace them with robots? And they're going to do it. They're going to do it. And all those jobs are going to go away. And automated drivers are, going to, delivery drivers that are everywhere right now making their wages, those are going to go away. It's all going to be done by machines. I mean, Amazon showed it years and years ago with their drones dropping off packages, and that didn't happen, but that's just a wink, wink. I mean, they've been thinking about it now for over a decade or more, and then eventually it's just going to be, we've seen these robots online. It's coming, and there's going to be all these people out of work. And where are they going to work? We're either going to burn it all down, which is also likely, or they need to have a universal basic income. Everybody needs to get a check in order to survive, because you can't keep all these people out of work. I mean, right now there's plenty of jobs, but this is just a side effect. Eventually it's going to catch us. And yeah, it's not going to be good, man. It's not. But anyway, we're so long, and we're not going to solve it on Oblast. It's just what this show is always about. We just kind of talk about things to make you think.
Try to give you people an extra minute or two out there for it.
Yeah, little thought process. But thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with more show.
Hell yeah.
Have a good one.
Peace.